Good morning, everyone. My name is Grace Choto, and I work for AHDB as the Horticulture Knowledge Exchange Manager for vegetables. Today, I'll be speaking on an EU Best for Soils nematodes database, which can be used as an aid to rotational planning for root and stem vegetables. So these are crops that are affected by nematodes damage. I thought I'll just say, although, I'm speaking on an EU project, I actually work for the Agriculture and Horticulture Development Board. Some of you may know it. If not, you can find out a bit more about it just by Googling AHDB. But essentially, we are we're a levy board made up of 6 sectors, 3 crop sectors and 3 animal ones. And I work in the crop sector, and the different boards that sit within AHDB invest the levies, the taxes that are collected from farmers, growers, and along the supply chain. They're used differently dependent on what the board decides for that particular sector. So in horticulture, most of our funds go to research, work and knowledge exchange. But for livestock, for example, there's a lot of investment in marketing. But we also do have a skills program and other things. So this is about soils, because nematodes do live in the soil and they affect root and stem vegetables. We've got, as AHDB, our own Great Soils banner, which lists, literally it's the brand of Great Soils work that covers research work as well as knowledge exchange on soils, but also we are facilitators or invited stakeholders to disseminate information that's arising from an EU Best for Soils project, which I'm focusing on today. So on Great Soils, if you Google on our website, or if you just Google Great Soils, you will come across this, this brand, and under it, we've got a lot of research work. What I've put there is just publications arising from some of that work. But essentially, when we started out on the Great Soils brand about 5 or 6 years ago, we were doing a lot of soil assessment and really re-educating growers and farmers on soils again, touching base, because I think for a long time, soils had been used just to produce without much proper thought. As long as, the nutrients were in there and there weren't diseases, then, people weren't very worried. But so we started off doing a lot of soil assessment, how to do soil assessment, how to kind of check the health of your soil and how to improve it. And we had a lot of resources come out from those first projects that we did. And we've got videos and fact sheets that are on our website. At present, we've also got 2 big partnership programs of work on soils. One of them is looking at soil biology, and it's a consortium of partners, research scientists and industry partners. And they're looking really at soil health metrics as well, because we understand a lot of soil physics and soil chemistry, yet soil health is very integral to that. And there's very little, that's advanced in terms of soil health, including the molecular diagnostics. So there's a whole range of work going on in there, but also where farmers and growers are putting in amendments and cover crops to try and quantify that in terms of soil health, soil structure, instead of in a holistic manner, so that everything is addressed. We've also got another partnership programs. Again, the details are on our website, that is looking at rotations with potatoes in them. It's called the Rotations Partnership Program. And in it, they are literally looking at how to make potato rotations more economically and agronomically more efficient, really. So there's a lot more that's going on. And I've just put a sample there of things, that's available on our website. But the focus today is this EU project on soils. It's called Best for Soils. It's an EU Horizon 2020 project with 8 project partners in it across the EU, and 20 facilitators who include invited stakeholders like the AHDB. And we have a facilitation role which ends on 30 September 2021. The project again aims to improve soil health across Europe through the promotion of 4 best practices. So that's where the 4 comes from. And it's got a lot of free resources that are publicly available to everyone across the EU in the 22 official languages of the EU. So there's the website. It looks like that, the main page, and then it's promoting these 4 best practices through the adaptation of optimized crop rotations as a basis to prevent buildup of soil-borne diseases, but also promoting the use of compost, organic amendments, cover crops, green manures, biosolarization where it works, and anaerobic soil disinfestation where all things are failing and you need a clean soil to start fresh again. And those are the 4 best practices. Obviously, some of them work, like biosolarization will work where it's hot and sunny, but there are other methods that could be used. Plus the 2 databases on nematodes and pathogens to aid with crop rotational planning. Again, it's got a lot of resources and you need to go on the website. If you're looking on anything on soils, they've got fact sheets and then they've got videos as well on a range of topics. Now to the database, nematodes. I'm agricultural trained, but nematodes were not really, never really fascinated by them. But thankfully, we've got a lot of people that are fascinated in nematodes. And there's a lot of nematodes affecting these stem and root of vegetables. In the UK, because the AHDB serves the UK, most of the levy boards do that, but not all of them. We don't serve Northern Ireland, for example. But essentially, we have very little nematologists as well. The number of nematologists that are renowned for the work that they do in the UK is very limited. So having this nematodes, nematologists across the EU come together to form this database is fantastic, because then it can be an aid to everybody across Europe who doesn't have access to nematologists. And nematodes are important. I've just taken an example here from carrots. We, AHDB Horticulture, funded work and on carrots and parsnips, developing a strategy to control free-living nematodes. And the final report was in 2016. It's on the AHDB website, and the headlines were, "A significant knowledge gap exists with regards to the impact of free-living nematodes on carrot and parsnip production." And I'd imagine this is the same across a number of crops. A lot is known more on potato cyst nematodes because they are a problem as well. But there are knowledge gaps there. But also there was this added problem in that there's a lack of available land to increase rotational length and considerable use of rented land. So farmers and growers are having to rent land, for example, so that you can fit these root crops within the rotations to try and control nematodes through this. And this is literally a sum up of the project report. So it says, there's a number of things that farmers and growers could do to try and control nematodes. So for carrots, breeding for resistance, well, the growers thought it's limited. We do have carrot variety trials, but they favor this variety called Nairobi, which is really old. It's a heritage variety because it does a lot of things. It doesn't break easily. You get a range of sizes and all these other things that are good for packing. And the new varieties might not be so. They're good for other things. So they said limited, given, and there were other grower concerns as well. Rotation high, yes, we can rotate despite the problems of rented land. Monitoring, you need somebody to monitor for free-living nematodes, and how accurate is a sample. If you monitor and this field is a problem, then then do that. Biofumigation, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Green manures and cover crops, perhaps. So they were, this project said there are a number of things that could be done to try and address these problems of nematodes within a field. And some of them would be good or not so good. And so this is where the EU Best for Soil Nematodes database fits in. And essentially, it's a database which provides information on the host status and damage sensitivity of a crop or a green manure for a number of nematode species. So it can be used as a management tool to risk rate the potential of nematode damage on a crop. So if you have a rotation and you want to sequence a particular crop within that specific rotation, you can then see whether preceding crops will have an impact on nematode buildup, because you've got different nematodes affecting different species, crops. You can choose which nematodes you're worried about for your crop, which will be affected by nematodes, and then you can risk rate. So it's a management aid. You use it, and then you can have to make your decision. But again, you have to obviously find out what nematodes you've got, or if you have any. And you need, there's really comprehensive guidance on nematode sampling, and you need somebody who's qualified to do that. So there's a screenshot. This database is still being developed as new information, because it's built by nematodes. As new research information comes in, a nematologist, then it will grow as well. But essentially, it's got 19 field crops at present, 29 vegetables, some green manures. The information on green manures is a bit limited, because not much is known as yet as in terms of nematode damage on them. And it's got 52 nematodes, which is amazing. But they're also building a pathogens database, which is not yet there, but it does the same thing, and it works along the same principles as this database that I'm showing you. So how could it help? It could help you with these questions. What are the crops in the rotation, and are they affected by nematodes? Could I order my crops differently on my own land to reduce nematode damage before maybe my carrot parsnip crop, because we're using carrot and parsnips as an example? And then could cover crops reduce populations where I have issues, or would they increase numbers? And the database may be useful in deciding whether to rent rented land or not. It's easy to use, but you can't use Internet Explorer on it. You have to use Chrome or Microsoft Edge. It doesn't work. I think the scripts don't run well on the old Explorer. Then you have to choose your language and country. Then you choose the crops you want to grow, and you can order them. Then you can also choose the nematodes that you know are present, if you know them. If you don't, you can choose all nematodes just to see which ones impact on your crop, and I'll show you how to do that. And then you have to create this skim button, and then it creates a PDF, and you can see the results. And then you have to interpret the results for your own specific situation. And it looks like that. So yeah, I've chosen, that's just a demonstration I did for carrot growers. So you can see the first page there. And again, you can see if you open them up, if you click on those, they open up, and then you can see the nematodes and what's available. And so what I did for carrots, because I'm not a carrot specialist, I just put carrots and selected all the nematodes, and it listed the ones that affected that affect my carrot crop. For example, this one here, or this one, Melodigine chitwoodi, Melodigine phalanx. So you get like a key, and the color shows you the potential damage on the crop. And if you've got these dots and these other things, they tell you whether it's a good host or a poor host, because if it's a good host, then the nematodes will increase, before your next crop, because some might not be affected, some crops, by nematodes, but they will build up the nematodes population. So this information is important as well. And again, you have to choose the soil type, and I'll show you that in a bit. So then I chose a rotation, a typical rotation. So maybe maize, potatoes, wheat, and there follows my carrot. And you can see that where you've got chitwoodi there, which is this row, most of those crops, even if there's little damage on maize, for example, still it's supporting population damage, population growth. So you end up with a lot of nematodes before your carrot crop. And what you'd want is maybe a crop that's like green. If you've got green, it means there's no nematode damage. And then also, if there's nothing inside it there, then maybe it's little damage, or sometimes the damage is unknown. Sometimes they know it's a non-host, but if there's a question mark, it means they don't really know whether that crop will support nematode population growth. So then I put a lot of field crops. So if you think, okay, what's in my rotation is not working for my carrot crop, so I chose all the crops, and then I chose just all those nematodes that affect carrots. And I can see what you want really is maybe a greener cross if possible. But as you can see, for some crops, the information is limited. This is still being developed, like I said. But what you're looking for is really maybe where you've got, if you've got a problem with, so maybe I could go with maize because it's mostly green before my carrot crop. But then if you look, if you've got this nematode, Pratylencus penetrans, which is a carrot nematode, then maybe you're in trouble as well. So you need to sample and find out what you've got. And then the vegetables, I did that. So sorry, the first ones were just arable crops, and this one is the vegetables. Again, you can see carrots, all those nematodes are a problem because I've just selected the problem pathogens. I didn't know them, but I went to the database and I first asked, what are my problem nematodes? And then I have to sample, do I have those nematodes? And then which crops will they multiply on? Which crops won't they? So maybe I should be growing leeks really, if I don't have Pratylencus penetrans, because if you look at the leek line, you've got quite, a lot of greens on there before my carrot crop. And then maybe a cover crop, because cover crops obviously are needed to build soil health. And I put, a lot of people are interested in Phacelia now. So I put Phacelia, and you can see, yeah, it is a non-host, but it does support, it's a very good host for Pratylencus penetrans. Although, for the other one, for this Heterodera carotea, it's really a non-host. If it's got two little things there, yeah, that looks like two, I can't see clearly, or it's clearly on my screen, but it's either a non-host or it actually supports active decline of the population. So maybe go with Phacelia if you've got a problem before your carrot crop. And then I listed all the cover crops. As you can see, not a lot of information exists for some of these cover crops because the work hasn't been done yet. And cover crops, everyone is doing them. But in terms of nematodes, a lot still has to be found out. And you can find out more about this Best for Soil database on www.bestforsoils.eu. Now I'm going to stop sharing the screen and show you on the website how it actually works. So I will stop share and then reshare my screen. Okay, I hope you can see that. Can you see that? Shall I go on, Sarah?
We can see it, yes.
Yes, okay, fantastic. So we've got the database now, and this is the website. So I could go fact sheets, right? You can see it's got fact sheets and all those other things over there. And you can click on what you're after. Is it compost you want? Do you want cover crops? You can see a lot of fact sheets and videos on cover crops. And then for the databases, if you scroll down there, you've got the database. So you have to go down. And then on there, you've got a database for pathogens, database for nematodes. If I click on that, it's loading. I have to choose my country. So I can choose the United Kingdom. You have to choose your soil type. So I'll go sandy clay loam, and it's field X. And maybe I'm more concerned about my potatoes. Field X, yeah. So if I don't know which crops affect my potatoes, for example, which nematodes affect my potatoes, I could go, if you click on these ones, what happens is you have a drop-down menu. You can use this also to go up and down. Remember, you've also got this one which goes up and down, but there, so I can choose my potatoes. I don't know what nematodes affect my potatoes. I'm not a potato grower, so I can expand on this, select them all, select them. Yeah, I'm not sure whether this is affecting. And then what I have to do is then I go create scheme. And what happens is you have this screen which comes up and it tells me, well, for potatoes, you have Melodigyne chitwoodi, you've got, this is a problem. This is Phalax is a problem. Pratylencus, I think I left the thing, nematodes as well. Hold on, let me go back. So, yes, stem nematodes, I select all them all. because which ones are there? I think I know the potato nematodes, for example, and I can't see them there. They are, hold on, so potato nematodes, stem nematodes, cyst nematodes, I hadn't selected them. Potato cyst nematodes, yeah, so I've selected them now and they should be here. So you've got potato cyst nematodes here. The first one, Globodera, I think it's called. You've got Pallida and you've got Rostichiensis. So you've got those potato nematodes. Then you've got Melodygyna chitwoodi, Phalex. You can see it will cause a big problem on my potato crop. Ditilencus destructor. So now I know what I'm dealing with. Then I could sequence my rotations. So I go back and then I'll go, okay, I'll deselect that because you can order your crops. So I'll go, let me have barley first and then maybe a clover because I want to feed my sheep, and then potatoes. And instead of selecting all of them, I will just select the ones that impact on my potatoes. So deselect Phalax, chitwoodi, maybe Hapla, I'm not sure whether it does that. Deselect everything else, deselect, I think destructor, deselect, and then I can create scheme. And there's the scheme, and the scheme says, well, obviously these are affected by these nematodes. Your barley crop is okay. If it's potatoes, because these are the problem nematode, the potato cyst nematodes, then barley and your clover should be fine because there's little damage on these two crops, but also actually they might promote active decline of populations, or they're non-host anyway, so the population might decline on its own because the nematode population, if it promotes, for example, just the life development of the nematode, it might halt it and it might stop. So there'll be a natural decline of nematodes within the population. And I think that's it. I'll stop sharing for now and wait for the questions later on. Thank you.
Grace. Thank you very much, Grace. As Grace said, if you do have any questions for her based on her presentation, please remember to type your question into the box by pressing the Q&A button, which is either on the bottom of your screen or up on the top of the left. I can see Sarah's already shared her screen ready, so mae Sarah yn barod iddyn ni. So hoffwn i now trosglwyddo i Sarah Gould sy'n mynd i rhoi trosolwg o project Tyfu Cymru. I'd now like to hand over to Sarah Gould, who will give us an overview of the Tyfu Cymru project. Diolch, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks, Rhiannon, and thanks, Grace. Wow, that was amazing. Good to see some familiar names joining us. It's always strange doing this, talking to myself, but I'll give it a go. I'm just going to give you an overview of the Tyfu Cymru project, what we've been doing, what we can offer. There is another webinar on later as part of our Plant Health Conference, which might be of interest to some of you. It's on at 5:15. You can get the link from the website. We do a lot, we're partners in the Farming Connect project. We do a lot together with Farming Connect, and this one is a demonstration of one of their EIP projects. So it's on a soft fruit farm down in Pembrokeshire, and they've been looking at integrated pest and disease management. So that's a kind of virtual tour of their experiences later on. So Tyfu Cymru, it's a great project. It's really exciting. We're stimulating growth in the commercial horticulture sector, supporting. We concentrate on commercial growers. There's other organisations that support community growers. So we're working with commercial growers, but right across the sector: edibles, non-edibles, ornamentals, flowers, and any type of growing. And it's 100% funded, and that funding comes through the Welsh Government Corporation Supply Chain, RDP. Eligibility is fairly straightforward. You've got to be a commercial grower. You need to be ready to engage with us and be based or growing in Wales. And the application process is through an online business review on the website. Back in 2016, we went out to growers and surveyed what their challenges and opportunities were. And from that, we formed our delivery plan. So it's very much grower led, and we continue to adapt our delivery to suit growers for what they really need to meet those challenges and opportunities. We work through a lot of networks. I'll come back to that later on. As I said, it's 100% funded. The sort of things you can access are one-to-one support with technical advisors. There's one-to-one support on digital marketing. And actually, we've been able to extend that through this period since March, because that used to be done going out on site, but we do it through Zoom calls now. So, no, you know, it's different. It is very different, but we're adapting all the time to it. We can share photographs. We can do tours on site if necessary, while the technical experts are there at hand. And we've got things like a virtual advice surgery coming up. So you can join that, have the technical expert and talk with other growers in a similar position. We've got quite an extensive resource base on our website. We call the Knowledge Hub. We've been doing a lot of webinars, and there's a search facility on there if you're looking for anything specific, but you can always email us. It's kind of focuses on high-end CPD training, so looking at innovative practices, looking at improving profitability and increasing turnover, becoming more sustainable. And we've got a bank of quality assured providers and specialists to offer that support. The sort of courses, it was very different pre-March. We'd go out and we'd do workshops on grower sites. We'd go and visit specialists, perhaps over the border. We'd go and do a study tour. There was a lot of peer-to-peer learning. So obviously it all changed, and we do most of our work currently online, but we do grower group sessions online, and we might look at a specific training topic. Again, bring a specialist in, but also that grower network support is really important. So these are the sort of courses that could be accessed, but it's not limited to that at all. We've got webinars coming up on importing and exporting. We've got an e-commerce one where we look at the specifics and the financial side of e-commerce. And we're, as I mentioned right back at the beginning, we're currently going through our own conference, which is a plant health conference over 2 weeks, a session each day. If any of you've seen that, some interesting virtual tours showcasing some of our established horticulture businesses in Wales. So the networks are there for businesses who want to work collaboratively. We've got networks like Vegetable Network, the Ornamental Network, Welsh Flowers. We've seen a lot of sunflowers this year, and they've been very successful. Our pumpkin guys, it's devastating news for them at the moment, but this week we've been working with the pumpkin growers to find them alternative sources and buyers for their pumpkins, and we've done a reasonable job for a lot of them. Well, fingers crossed, a good job by the end of the week, because they're opening early this week and closing late, and trying to increase sales as much as they can up to Friday. We've got a soft fruit network and a top fruit network and a Christmas tree network and seed network. It goes on and on, but those work really well, and we've continued to support those guys through this period, through those online grower networks, which once you've got on Zoom once, then you feel like you're a bit of an expert on it, and you can cope with these things. It's whether you then get zoomed out by it all, and there's too many of them. You've got to be selective then as to what you join. So networks primarily have been arranged around single crops, but it doesn't have to be that. If there's a group of businesses looking at potentially soilless growing or in a geographical area, we could look at that as well. So our one-stop knowledge hub, that's our online resource. It's got a lot of links. We'd link over to Grace and the AHDB work. We've run many webinars, and there are examples of e-learning on there in a whole host of topics, soilless growing, no dig growing, to name a couple of them. And linked with those webinars, there'll be toolkits and fact sheets. It's if anybody is looking for something specific, you can always just contact us. But it is grower driven content. So to give you an example, at one of our soft fruit meetings in April, guys were looking at cashless systems because their business had changed. So we had a discussion around that, and then we came out with some effective resources and what the options were in terms of cashless systems, and those resources would then be up on the website. So that's about it, I think, or that's an overview of it for now. Please do feel free to ask questions today or contact us through the website, email or telephone number. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Diolch yn fawr, Sarah. Thank you very much, Sarah. Bydden nawr yn agor y llawr am cwestiynau. I'm now going to open the floor for questions. So we've had one question in, luckily. Hopefully everybody else is beavering away on their keyboards. So just click the Q&A button and type your question into the box. Have a question there for you, Sarah? Do you think that the pick your own industry is beginning to get flooded with more and more people doing it?
Thank you. Really interesting question. I mean, on the strawberry side, apparently there used to be 27 pick your owns in Wales. We're nowhere near up to that figure. And on the Gower alone, there were 3. So I think, I don't think it is, but I suppose where we've got to be careful is too many in one area. So yeah, I think there are a lot of opportunities. We've seen it with the sunflowers, with the pumpkins. I mean, even with the pumpkin guys, there were 3 on the Vale this year, and all 3, apart from the current situation now going towards Friday, all 3 were doing extremely well and very, very busy. Which I was pleased to see, because that was one that we were keeping an eye on. So no, and you know, the guys who have done the virtual tour for this afternoon have been trialing cherries. Some of the strawberry guys are doing more on raspberries. So we're also continually looking at what else there is.
Great, thank you for that. Another question here, which I think could be for Sarah or Grace. Do you need to be a landowner to diversify into the horticulture sector? Who would like to tackle that one first?
Well, I don't think you need to be, because you can rent land, and dependent on what you want. I think you have to decide what you want to do, and then you can investigate options. And I think both Lantra and the AHDB are bodies to approach if you've got an idea or you need help. And if we don't have the answers, we could possibly point you in the right direction, because we deal with a lot of organizations. But certainly diversifying, I think what the coronavirus has told us is that people need to be dynamic and changing all the time, and diversifying, just to remain you know, competitive in whatever business you are engaged in.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say you can do an awful lot on a very small area as a first point. We work closely with Social Farms and Gardens, who've got a community supported agriculture network, where we've seen new growers link with farmers who were keen to, through in various forms, set up a CSA on their land. So there's that option. We're working quite closely with NFU to see if there are farmers that we can link with growers. So no, I don't think you do have to be a landowner. I think you can do an awful lot. And I also think that a lot is being done in urban areas. We know there's an increase in vertical farm and CSA ideas. So no, it's exciting times. Like Grace says, you know, what we've seen in COVID, the businesses that were doing well were the horticulture businesses, and you know, massive increases in people wanting to grow their own and fill their gardens and make their gardens look beautiful. So there were challenges, don't get me wrong, there were challenges for many of the businesses, and it was harder for some of the ornamental guys, but really exciting times.
Great, thank you. We have a question here for Grace. How many sites in the UK are contributing data to the EU nematode survey?
How many sites?
Yes, so
what they've done is these nematologists are practically applied researchers. So they did a lot of data mining first, and they looked a lot at literature and crop damage, and they tried to quantify that, because sometimes yields are quantified. And so the database is built on research that has been done in the past, as well as research that was undergoing across Europe. So in terms of how much contribution they got from the UK, they got a lot of the pathological, because there was Warwick Crop Centre, the University of Warwick, well-known pathologists that fed into their pathology database. But on nematodes, I don't know anyone, you know, from the UK, or whether any information, but certainly the papers from the UK and global papers were reviewed to get into this database and quantified in an Excel spreadsheet which runs behind the database.
I suppose perhaps what they were wondering was whether the accuracy of the data that is on that database is, if there were more sites from the UK, would that make the database stronger than for growers in the UK?
I think for nematodes, it's mostly to do with soil and soil structure. You'll have more nematodes on sandier soils than you would on clay soils, for example. So I don't think, although soils are definitely different, yeah, which is why people need to sample. I think just the nematode and the crop damage matrix should be some good evidence that you will have an issue if it's generated at pink, for example, with those 3 dots that I showed. Yeah. So yes, it is important, and it would be lovely if they had. I haven't seen the background data whether UK soils were in there, but certainly I think that the formula and the answer, the way they've done it, still works on a number of crops and soils.
Good. And following on from that then, there's a question here. What part of the growing or planting cycle should we look at soil health?
Sorry, say that again.
In what part of the growing or planting cycle should we look at soil health?
Oh, soil health. Now I know, because I work within horticulture, and horticulture now, a lot of the growers have tried to extend the season so that you have, obviously, you know, produce from start to finish to supply your market, or import if you have to. So there's very little time for you to think about soil health, and although they plan for it because of all the farm activities and, you know, sequencing, timing, on-farm things. But it's better to start thinking about your soil as you're planning for your crops, because then you can see when you can put in a short-term green manure. For example, we did projects in horticulture where short-term green manures were used before maybe a spring crop, something that will just flush out, and then you can capture whatever, and it improves the soil health at that particular moment, and probably will limit your sort of fuel use when your draft when you are plowing the land. But later on, when it's getting cooler, we know the earlier you get the cover crop on, the better, rather than leave soil uncovered. So if you can put in a cover crop to go through the autumn and winter, so it establishes earlier on, then do that as well. But certainly there's a lot of things you could look at to improve your health, dependent on your own specific scenario and situation.
So what would your advice be then to farmers and growers? Is just to get their soil tested as in the first instance? That's where they.
If you are, particularly if you're growing horticultural soils, you need to test your soils. You need to test the pH of your soils. You need to make sure you're growing, land site selection is the first step. You need to make sure it is right. And as I said, there are so many resources to help you on our website, as well as you can just get in touch with us and we can point out. But certainly you need to be testing your soils for horticulture. For arables, not as much, because if you've been growing on that land and you know your land for a long time, then you could maybe test every 4 years, I think the guidance says, but not for particularly specialty crops. You need to find out what's suitable for that crop, give the right fertilizer for it, and then just assess as well the soil structure and the soil profile. Is there compaction there? Because if you've got a compacted layer, your crop roots won't go through that layer. So do your soil assessments, definitely. In advance before the crop, and then also during the crop. You can assess soils just by digging pits and sampling certain areas of the field, or sampling where you've got issues. Go there and concentrate on that. Great,
thank you. Question here: who are the growers' target audience? Supermarkets and shops, or the consumers? That be for you, Sarah, possibly?
Who's their target audience? We deal with the whole range. So we work with growers who supply supermarkets. There's not as much of that in Wales, but we don't, there's then we deal with field scale growers who would supply wholesale or direct their own farm shops. That we've seen that as an area of growth, or people who are producing for veg boxes and community supported areas. So I guess my answer to the question would be, depends what scale you want to go into and whether you want to grow a range of crops or whether you want to concentrate on specific crops. And that might be dependent on your assessments and where you are geographically.
And who would Tyfu Cymru be able to support? Is it growers of all sizes, or is it specifically?
It is, we support, growers of all sizes and all types. There's an offer for everybody. And, if you're going through that soil assessment process, we could get our technical experts in to help with the analysis and put a plan in place. So yeah, all sizes.
Thank you. And following on from that then, we have a farmer here with land, but not the time and skills. How would he find partners to work with?
I think there's two options. I would say the first one is back to Farming Connect and looking at the venture program, which I'm sure Rhiannon will be able to say more about. But it's an area where we're hoping to partner with, and we've already started having those discussions and bringing in the farming unions to talk through what the options are. So there's quite a lot of work going on in specific areas at the moment to try and match up growers with farmers who've got land. So yeah, I'd say come back to Farming Connect, but contact ourselves as well, and we can have that conversation and have a joined up approach.
Yeah, so just to expand, the venture program pairs up those with land who maybe want to scale back their farming activities or look at retirement, with people who are looking to acquire land to be able to begin their businesses. So we're able to match those people together. We do have some horticulture businesses as part of the venture program, so there are opportunities there for people who are interested in horticulture. So that the main thing to do with that, the first port of call would be to contact Farming Connect to express your interest in the venture program or to have a look at our website. And we have one more question here, which is for Grace, I think. Can you provide a measurable that is appropriate to provide an indicator of soil health in terms of biodiversity?
Well, now this is what one of our bigger partnership programs that I talked about earlier on is trying to do, because it is very hard to give a holistic measure of soil health, because for soil health, then you have to look at physics, chemistry, but biology, from what you're saying, biodiversity is more on the biology side. And at the moment, we've got a big program of work looking at these biological indicators of soil health and trying to put metrics around. So obviously the big ones would be like earthworm numbers, that's known, but there's also a lot of living soil dwelling micro, not you've got the big organisms like the earthworms, but you've also got tinier organisms that are not in there. And these scientists are looking at all these things and trying to understand the relationships in terms of diseases, you know, for specific scenarios, obviously, but also to quantify things like cover crops and soil structure, put a metric around that. It's a very holistic program, but essentially, yes, what they are trying to do is to try and come up with a soil score. It's called the scorecard, which tells you, you know, between, you've got either a green, an amber, or a red. And it says, if it's red, you need to concentrate on these particular things. And this scorecard will be looking at the physics, the chemistry, as well as the biology, and it's trying to put everything together to give a holistic measure on soil, which would then cover biodiversity as well. Because the more diverse a soil, the more resilient it is, and that's known. But unfortunately, sometimes it's not so easy to get, you know, that diversity in within your crops to build a diverse microflora as well underneath.
Thank you very much. We don't have any more questions here unless somebody is going to type one in the next 30 seconds or so. So I think we will stop there if everybody's happy. If anybody does have any other questions, feel free to contact myself if you'd like to, and I can pass your question on to be answered later and we will provide an answer to you. Ond yn anffodus, mae rhaid i ni orffen nawr. Diolch yn fawr i chi pawb am eich cyfraniad bore yma. We will have to finish there, unfortunately, but thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions this morning.